Right now, while you are watching this, most people in the world are still asleep, and that single fact is going to matter more than you think. Not because there is anything magical about the hour on the clock, but because of what it reveals. The people who are up right now, thinking, preparing, choosing, are quietly building a different life than the people who are still hitting snooze. And in the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly how that happens and how you can start doing it yourself, starting tomorrow morning, even if you have never done it before. My name is David Grant, and for years I believed that successful people were simply born with more discipline than the rest of us. I thought motivation was something you either had or you didn't. I was wrong. What I eventually discovered is that the people who seem the most disciplined are not relying on motivation at all. They are relying on something far more reliable, something anyone can build, starting with one decision made in the first few minutes of the day. Here is what almost nobody tells you. The moment you wake up, before you have said a word to anyone, before you have checked a single notification, you are already making a decision that will shape the next 16 hours of your life. Most people make that decision without even realizing it. They let their body choose comfort, and then they wonder why the rest of the day feels like it is controlling them instead of the other way around. You already know this feeling. You wake up, you tell yourself 5 more minutes, and somehow those 5 minutes turn into 20. And by the time you are finally up, you are already behind, already rushing, already reacting instead of leading. That feeling is not a personal failure. It is simply what happens when the first decision of the day is left on autopilot. But here's the part that changes everything. That first decision, the small one, the one that feels almost too tiny to matter, is actually the most powerful lever you have. Not because getting out of bed early makes you special. It doesn't. But because of what that single action proves to you. It proves that you can keep a promise to yourself, even when your mind is arguing against it. And once you prove that to yourself one morning, you can prove it again the next. And that is where real change begins. If any part of what I just said feels familiar, if you have ever laid in bed knowing exactly what you should be doing and still couldn't make yourself move, I want you to write that in the comments below. Because I read every single one, and I promise you, you are far from alone in this. Thousands of people watching this right now have felt exactly what you are feeling. But here is something I have not told you yet. Something that most people never figure out even after years of trying to fix their mornings. And it is the real reason so many people fail at this again and again. It has almost nothing to do with the clock and everything to do with what happens in your mind in the 60 seconds after you open your eyes. And once you understand that, everything else becomes easier. Let's talk about what is actually happening in those first 60 seconds, because this is where almost everyone gets it wrong. Most people treat the moment they wake up as a single choice. Get up or don't. But that is not really what is happening. What is actually happening is a negotiation. Your mind is presenting you with a case for staying comfortable. And if you do not have a stronger case ready, comfort wins almost every time. This is not weakness. It is simply how the brain is wired. It is designed to protect you from discomfort. And lying still under warm blankets is about as comfortable as life gets. The people who consistently win that negotiation are not relying on willpower in the moment. They decided the night before. They already know why they are getting up, what they are getting up for, and what it will cost them if they don't. That is the real difference. It is not that they feel more like getting up. Most mornings, they don't. It is that they have already made the decision in advance. So there is nothing left to negotiate when the alarm goes off. Think about what your mornings currently look like. For most people, the first hour is spent reacting. Check the phone. See what happened overnight. Answer a message. Scroll a little longer than intended. And before you know it, the day has already started making decisions for you. And you have not made a single one for yourself. You did not choose to think about that news story. You did not choose to feel that flash of comparison when you saw someone else's life on a screen. Those things were handed to you, and you accepted them, simply because you had not claimed that time first. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine a version of your morning where the first thing you do is entirely yours. No outside voice, no no other person's priorities. Just you, deciding what matters, before anyone else gets a chance to decide it for you. That is not a luxury reserved for people with easier lives or fewer responsibilities. It is available to anyone willing to claim it, and it does not require waking up at any specific hour. It requires waking up with intention, whatever time that happens to be for you. Here is something that might surprise you. The exact activity you choose to do with that time matters far less than most people assume. Read, write, stretch. Sit quietly with a cup of coffee and think. Plan your day on paper instead of in your head. None of these things are magic on their own. What makes them powerful is that you chose them on purpose before the world had a chance to choose something else for you. That ownership is the real engine behind everything that follows. And there is one more piece to this that most people never realize. Something that changes not just your mornings, but the way you see yourself entirely. It is coming up next. And once you understand it, you will never look at a simple morning routine the same way again. The piece most people miss is this. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself, you are not just completing a task. You are collecting evidence. Evidence about who you are and what you are capable of. And your brain is constantly building a case, using that evidence, about whether you are someone who follows through or someone who doesn't. That case gets stronger every single day, in one direction or the other. Say you told yourself last night that you would get up and take a 15-minute walk before the day started. If you do it, even if it is uncomfortable, even if part of you argued against it the entire time, you walk away with more than fresh air. You walk away with proof. Proof that when you say something to yourself, it actually happens. That proof becomes part of your identity, whether you notice it consciously or not. And identity is far more powerful than motivation, because identity does not need to feel inspired in order to act. It just acts, because that is who it believes itself to be. This is why the specific activity matters less than the consistency of showing up for it. If your goal is to read every morning, 10 pages will not change your life in a single day. But 10 pages, repeated for a year, becomes thousands of pages, and thousands of pages of good ideas absorbed slowly over time will absolutely change the way you think, the way you speak, and the decisions you make. The same is true for exercise. One walk will not transform your body. Hundreds of walks will. The pattern is always the same. Small actions feel insignificant in the moment and become enormous over time simply because they compound. Here is a practical way to begin if you have never done this before. Choose one thing. Just one. Not 5 habits at once. Not a complicated schedule with 15 steps. One thing that matters to you. Something you can realistically do in 20 or 30 minutes. It might be writing down 3 goals for the day. It might be a short walk before anyone else in the house is awake. It might be reading a few pages of something that challenges you to think differently. Choose it the night before, so there is nothing to decide in the moment except whether you will follow through on what you already promised yourself. The unexpected part is this. Once you succeed with that one small thing for a few weeks, you will not need to force yourself to add more. You will want to, because the confidence from keeping that first promise starts spilling into other areas of your life naturally. You start speaking to yourself differently. You start trusting your own word again, maybe for the first time in years. If this is helping you see your mornings differently, this is exactly the moment to like this video and share it with someone in your life who needs to hear it too. Because the people we care about rarely get told this in a way that actually makes sense. And this might be the version that finally lands for them. But there is a deeper reason all of this works, a reason that goes far beyond mornings. And once you hear it, you will understand why some people seem to handle pressure, setbacks, and hard days so much better than everyone else. Here is the deeper truth. What you are really building in those early morning minutes is not a routine. It is your response to discomfort. And that single skill, your ability to act even when you do not feel like it, is the actual root of almost everything people call success. Not talent, not luck, not even intelligence. Just the willingness to keep moving when moving is the last thing your body wants to do. Most people believe motivation comes first and action follows. Feel excited, then get up. Feel inspired, then start the project. Feel ready, then take the leap. But that belief has it backwards, and it is the reason so many people stay stuck for years without understanding why. Motivation is not reliable. It shows up some mornings and disappears on others, often for no clear reason at all. If you wait for it before you act, you will spend half your life waiting. The people who consistently follow through operate on a different principle entirely. They act first, and they let the motivation catch up afterward, if it ever shows up at all. They get out of bed while still exhausted. They start the workout while still unmotivated. They sit down to write while the resistance in their mind is loudly arguing against it. And somewhere in the middle of doing the thing, not before it, the resistance quiets down and momentum takes over. This is the real root cause behind why so many people feel stuck despite genuinely wanting to change. They are waiting for a feeling that was never designed to arrive on command. And once you understand that discipline is simply the willingness to act without that feeling, everything shifts. You stop waiting for the right mood. You stop postponing until you feel ready. You simply begin, tired or not, certain or not, comfortable or not, because you have decided that your feelings do not get the final vote on your actions. This is also why the discomfort of an early morning is not something to avoid. It is the entire point. Every time you choose to get up when your body wants to stay still, you are practicing exactly this skill in a small, low-stakes way before life asks you to practice it in a much bigger one. The person who can get out of bed on a hard morning is quietly training the same muscle they will need on the day their real resilience gets tested, whether that is a setback at work, a difficult conversation, or a moment when everything feels uncertain. Once you see it this way, the morning stops being about the clock entirely. It becomes a daily rehearsal for the kind of person you are choosing to become. And that reframing changes the way ordinary mornings feel from the inside out. But there is still one more layer to uncover, something that ties everything together. And it might be the most important idea in this entire video. That layer is silence. And it is almost never talked about, even though it may be the single most valuable part of an early morning. We live surrounded by noise almost every waking hour. Phones buzzing, feeds refreshing, opinions arriving from every direction before we have even had the chance to form our own. Most people go entire weeks without a single stretch of genuine quiet, without a moment where their mind is not responding to something external. That constant noise comes at a real cost, even if it is difficult to notice day to day. When your attention is always being pulled outward, it becomes almost impossible to hear your own thoughts clearly. You lose touch, slowly and quietly, with what you actually think, what you actually want, and where you are actually heading. Decisions start to feel foggy. Priorities blur together. And underneath it all, a low, constant sense of being behind builds up, even when you are technically doing everything you are supposed to be doing. An early, quiet morning interrupts that pattern before it has a chance to take hold for the day. In that stillness, before the noise begins, you get access to a kind of clarity that is nearly impossible to find once the world wakes up around you. You can ask yourself real questions. Am I actually moving toward the life I want, or just staying busy? What habit is quietly holding me back? What would I do today if I trusted myself completely? These are not dramatic questions, but they are the questions that slowly redirect a life, one honest morning at a time. This is not about isolating yourself from people or responsibilities. It is about protecting a small window of time that belongs entirely to you before it gets claimed by everyone and everything else. Even 20 minutes of that kind of stillness can shift the entire tone of your day because you are starting from a place of clarity instead of reaction. Here is something worth sitting with. The version of your life 5 years from now will not be shaped by one dramatic decision made on some extraordinary day. It will be shaped by the ordinary mornings, the quiet ones, the ones nobody else even noticed, where you chose discipline over comfort, one more time than the day before. That is the real mechanism behind lasting change, and it is far less exciting than most people expect. But it is also far more reliable than anything else. You do not need a perfect routine to start. You do not need to wake up at a specific hour tomorrow to prove something to yourself or to anyone else. You simply need one honest decision, made a little earlier than usual, protected from the noise, and repeated. And what that single decision builds over time is something we still have to talk about, because it is the part that changes not just your mornings, but the entire direction of your life. Here's the strongest idea in this entire video. So if you take one thing with you, let it be this. You are not actually deciding whether to get out of bed tomorrow morning. That is not really the choice in front of you. What you are actually deciding every single morning is what kind of person you are becoming. Every small choice, repeated enough times, eventually becomes a habit. Every habit, repeated enough times, eventually becomes your character. And your character, more than talent, more than circumstances, more than luck, ends up shaping the entire direction of your life. That means the goal was never really about 5 a.m. specifically. The clock was never the point. Some people will do this work at 5, others at 6:30, others whenever their life realistically allows for a quiet stretch of intentional time. What matters is not the hour on the clock. What matters is that you claim some part of your morning as yours, before the world has a chance to claim it for you, and that you protect it consistently, even on the days it feels unnecessary. You do not need to transform everything overnight. Nobody does that successfully. And anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. What you actually need is far simpler and far more achievable. One decision, slightly better than the one you made yesterday, made again tomorrow, and again the day after that. That is the entire mechanism behind real, lasting transformation. Not a single dramatic turning point, but thousands of small, ordinary ones, repeated far longer than most people are willing to stay consistent. My name is David Grant, and I did not always believe this. For years, I searched for the one big change that would finally fix everything, the one breakthrough, the one moment that would turn things around. It never came, because it was never going to come that way. What actually changed my life was far less dramatic. It was deciding, one morning at a time, to keep a small promise to myself, even on the mornings I did not feel like it. That is the entire secret, if you can even call it a secret. It was available the whole time. So tomorrow, when your alarm goes off and part of you argues for 5 more minutes, remember that the real decision in that moment has very little to do with sleep. You are choosing, quietly, who you are going to become. Choose purpose over comfort. Choose one honest action over a perfect plan you never start. Choose to keep the promise, even the small one, especially the small one, because those are the ones that build a life you can trust yourself inside of. If this reached you today, if any part of it felt like it was speaking directly to where you are right now, I would be genuinely grateful if you subscribed to this channel and turned on notifications, because there is so much more of this I want to share with you, and I do not want you to miss what is coming next. Your mornings can change. Your days can change. And eventually, one honest decision at a time, your life can change too.